And we're live for another Bitcoin breakdown. And
Bitcoin breakdown.
hey, gotta get that alliteration. I think
Breakdown
breakdown.
and breakout and break dance.
Hey, I mean, is the only alliteration I haven't seen before. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, I don't know if it's really breaking down. It's kind of breaking up, right?
Yeah.
Ethereum's up 17-20%. Bitcoin's up 3%.
Hmm.
I mean, we were kind of pointing that out a few days ago with the Ethereum shorts all time high. People just trying to repeatedly sell that low for no reason other than I don't know why they're so pessimistic, but I guess that's cool to be. So
We had basically a 40% drop from that prior base consolidation wedge, descending triangle, whatever you want to call it, right? Um, where's my drawing tool? I got the crypto chart up. You can see that, right?
yeah, I could see it.
Okay, so let me see if I can draw here. If you got questions, Alec, that you see in the stream, I don't see the stream. But anyway, we had that wedge, that base. This is this real money candle that we broke down from. So had basically a 40% drop. And now you can see we haven't even retraced quite halfway of the move, but definitely when it doesn't take much of a percentage pop off the lows when you back up so much. So that's what's kind of happening today. But these this is a bounce from a lower low right now to just all you have is a bounce to a lower high, most likely. So we still need to see maybe the market come back down, double bottom, or make a higher low, come back up, and then take out a pivot. And that just will be much more technically sound as far as making higher highs again. So there is, if you bought well, like if some of you nibbled on 0x or some Binance, if you bought stuff well on this bounce, this is a spot where you don't want to. 20% is nothing to shake a stick at. Do we have anybody that nibbled? I didn't nibble down here. I was kind of waiting for maybe one more leg down.
I don't know. I don't know.
Not on Ether anyway.
After seeing so many different leg downs, I ended up grabbing a little earlier than that. Right as it started breaking, one at the 200 level, and we
Okay.
should got that rejection though.
Yeah, so that's going to remain to be seen as if we fail at the bands here. I mean, you would kind of expect near term a lower high here. Intermediate term, the 4 hour cycle's high. So if you buy stuff well, like again, I didn't buy any futures here. I wanted to see one more push down. But either way, if you bought well, you sell. If you want to hedge some of your portfolio, this is the first place to short futures actually right here. You got the 200 above the market. Maybe you sell some futures here, you sell some here, kind of as a hedge. Um, and then on the next pullback, we can look at some of these other alts. Um, 0x we thought looked pretty cheap. We should look at the relative value today. I didn't do it yesterday. Pretty strong move up. So we call this phase one. Our traders know this is a phase one lower low. This is phase one. From here to go right to a new high, like this is the last really pivot. I guess you could maybe argue this one, but this one's close to the 8. So typically the pivots I like to see closer to the bands or sometimes a 30-day moving average. So most likely this is a bounce to a lower high, but sometimes you will get a V bottom where you go from a lower low right to a new high. That's the toughest to catch. But however big we put in, however big of a wall that the bulls can build off of here, that next pullback is where there's a pretty good opportunity. So whether like the pullback here, if you miss the lower lows, so if the next pullback is, in this range, I'd be a buyer here, back in this zone. right? Or if we don't fail here and you continue up to the bands, that's gonna build an even bigger fall. And then about halfway, if you rally like this, as you come back down, you can be a buyer. So what you're trying to do is buy higher lows versus just, chasing the lower highs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. Yeah, I mean to be watching for that.
12% off the low, 0x. Do we have a percentages of certain coins that are up this morning? Kind of like to see what's up the most.
Coin market cap, really. I think you just have really the small caps that are really rising. Nano up 40%, Aeon 20, and then everything else pretty much within that 20 to 30% range.
Aeon 20%.
Yeah, they were getting hit pretty hard though. To be fair, that's a pretty tight V.
Yeah, they were one of the lowest to start with. It's really faint. I don't know why it's so faint. It's really hard to see. Monero up strong. What percent is that? You see that up? This is versus BTC, but
Monero's sitting at like 13 and a half.
Okay. EOS, pretty good move up on the hourly. Not much of a bounce from Cardano versus BTC. Not much of a bounce from Binance. Not much of a bounce from Bitcoin Cash. Ether's bounce, the Monero bounce, EOS bounce, even the Ripple bounce seems pretty strong. And you can see we had 0x pretty low. EOS was sticking out here on the 11th, 9/11. What else did you want to hit on, Alec? There's some of the news you wanted to. You guys want to look at futures?
Yeah. Speaking of futures, Morgan Stanley just came out this morning about they're having their derivatives. So, they offer the synthetic option to participate for their clients. It's based off the futures market where they'll be buy and short, but they really don't have to hold any underlying Bitcoin, which is unfortunate, but I guess in a roundabout way, it probably increases some sort of interest. Maybe, if they can do that, maybe they'll be a little more interested in actually physically owning it, which that's the end game there.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty constructive news, I'd say, for sure. This 4-hour bounce in futures, it's all the same thing. We're moving into the bands. So there's a good chance you get a lower high, 30 minutes right at pi. That's a great place to start near-term shorts. So anybody that was playing us on the short side that was pressing into the lows, that was what we kept saying, that you're short into the hole here. Now is a better place that if you want to play the short side, it makes a lot more sense. Big picture, though, you're still kind of right in the middle of this consolidation. It's like shorting at 6,600 is not the same as shorting 8,000.
Yeah. I got a few people asking about is this really a fake out, before just a continuation down? And I don't think there's any reason to think that.
It could be. I mean, anything can happen.
Exactly.
This is definitely the first place that if the market's going to fail, that's the place to do it. First here, you have the 30-day there also. If we get above the 8, then just based on the daily, you can go back to the trend line and the bands up here. Hate that color. Back this way. So that's kind of what we're watching this morning. You got the pi line on the 30-minute. And then 50% retrace of this move is another spot to look at. It's like 6,800. I got to come out of some euro here real quick. Okay, let's see. Let's check up on our daily cycle. You got any questions? What's going on in the feed?
Oh, not too much. Everyone's just kind of saying, is this really the bottom here? Are we seeing a fake out continuation? What's Litecoin doing? Cardano. Litecoin is pretty low here. I don't know why everyone kept calling for 20, like $20. I think like Charlie Lee went on and said, well, Litecoin, it's all time high here. Well, it can go all the way back down to 20. Well, he said it could go back down, but everyone's kind of calling that, that's got to be the low then, right? And I don't understand why people aren't feeling comfortable, loading some, putting some fiat back into this market after we did the whole stream. If you guys missed it yesterday, but me and Chris talked about, this market's crashed farther than the .com bubble already. It went as high percentage wise and down as much percentage wise. Sure, It didn't lose as much value, but it's still at that kind of psychological level where it's gone pretty damn low, and to a low that a lot of people that criticize the market or have been waiting for it, hey, this stuff's going to crash. Well, hey, it did crash. All right. And then when you look, they see what happened after that .com crash. And, the bottom's got to be here somewhere. So, I mean, as long as you keep it light until we get some sort of, confirmation, I don't see why you wouldn't be looking to, add all around, add in this whole breakdown.
I mean, to summarize it, it's kind of, you have to think in different durations. So when people says this is a fake out, it's kind of like, well, what time frame are you looking at? I mean, big picture, nothing's changed really. Nothing's changed from 4 or 5 days ago. As it's like the market has an update. We haven't broken out from any type of longer term pivots. That's the structure, lower highs. And then we're still basing. So nothing's changed big picture. Now, intermediate term, that's different. You can talk about, this would be the first place to reset some shorts. We didn't like shorting down here. If you bought well, you got to come out of some, but nothing's really changed at all big picture. It's different perspectives on your time frames, just more about how you're playing it. So I like nibbling at lower lows, and then if you buy stuff well, like today is a day where you can come out of some,
Yeah. There's no reason to. I think it just depends on where their position is. A lot of people unfortunately didn't, take off or lighten up on that whole way down, on the whole way up like we were. So, I think people are kind of just, for the most part, just kind of lost here on what, they don't want to be, faked out again in some way, and it just goes even lower.
Yeah. And when you worry about being faked out, is because you're buying on up days. You don't want to be chasing 20% moves. You've already missed it, right? You would add on a day like today longer term, but for the most part, you want to buy on down days. So you want to buy on red. And there's a difference between buying higher lows. Let me move this over. I ran out of room. Am I on the futures chart? I'm not sure.
Yep. Yeah, I see the futures in the euro.
Okay. All right. Oh, that's fine. Let me get some blank canvas. So we kind of teach our traders a difference between buying higher lows and buying lower lows. Most people don't even identify, okay, so we want to buy on down days. Okay, got it. And we want to sell on up days. Okay, got it. easier said than done. And most people do the opposite. They chase a move like this, and then they're fearful when we're 20% lower. But if you're buying on down days, you buy on down days like this at lower lows. That's a different style. It's hard to consistently buy lower lows because they'll tend to go lower on you, and then the bounces are shallow. If you buy well, the bounce is shallow, and then you're underwater again. So when you're in a downtrend, you can buy lower lows. You just have to do it in a different fashion. You have to do it on smaller size over a wider time frame, over a longer duration, over a wider range of the chart. If I buy aggressive lots here, let's just say 10 lots, 10s could be futures, 10 could be 10 BTC, doesn't matter. But if 10 is a big lot, I would want to be buying 1 lots maybe here, 2 lots, and then another 1 lot, another 2 lots, another 1 lot. I can work the position as it's moving against me, contrary in that way. But you have to identify lower lows. When you want to buy on red on higher lows, that's when you can be more aggressive, when you're in that type of structure. So 2 different types. Are you buying on red on lower lows? You got to be smaller size, more patient. Right now, all we've done is bounce. You guys can kind of figure out what this looks like. We basically bounced off a lower low, and we're kind of right here. So you don't want to be chasing this. You should have been buying here, ideally, and then you would be coming out of some now. You don't need to chase this. You could add here, but really you need to be prepared to be buying the next pullback here is a better spot. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Anybody have any questions on that? So you have to identify, okay, I'm buying on down days, but are you buying lower lows? Because most people don't even realize they just keep buying lower lows and lower lows and lower lows, and that's how you get yourself in trouble. Time to be aggressive is at higher lows on down days. We don't have that yet. So this is just a bounce to a lower high. Here we had it was a little bit different. Here you start having higher lows. Like we were pretty aggressive here, but then you have to come out of it on the next move to a higher high. And then this is just a lower, this is an equidistant high, and then that broke. So then you had lower lows. You got lower lows, lower lows, lower lows. This next pullback will be interesting though. This next pullback, if you get a higher low here, this is kind of the place to maybe look to buy again. It's 4 hours high.
Get a little heavier there.
If we don't pull back from here and we get another move up into this area, definitely be taking off some more longs. It just depends on how you get there and when you get there too. What other coins you guys want to look at real quick? I have time for a few more unless anybody has questions on that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone else really caring too much about the other coins. I think everyone's just kind of watching this Bitcoin and Ethereum just with that huge rejection. Of such a crazy percentage overnight.
I want to look at a couple of these alts. I pretty much already know that like Cardano is just a bounce to lower highs still.
Yeah, and they're kind of what does the same thing apply to lower time frames? And yeah, I would completely transferable to lower time frames.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes pretty difficult though, trading on lower time frames in these markets.
You just have a lot of different trends, so you have to stop and start and a lot more. But we kind of break it out. There's near term, intermediate term, swing trade, or intermediate term time frame, and then the long term. So typically long term, you kind of categorize that as investing. So we look at, for the investing time frame, long term, daily, weekly, monthly charts. Intermediate term, it typically moves between, so the long term could be several, really several weeks to several months or several years. I mean, once you go past 3 years, you're just kind of, it's not helpful. You're just so hard to predict past. So several months to several years. The intermediate term is several days to several weeks, right? And then the near term would be several minutes to several hours, really. Like day trade, near term, that's all inside of 1 day. The swing trade time frame would be several hours to several days. So those are your hourly and 4-hour charts. Your near term is your 5-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute. And so you have all different cycles, you have all different trends within all those 3 time frames and all those different charts. So that's why it can be confusing, but you kind of have to compartmentalize and break it down and say, hey, what time frame am I really playing here? If you want to take shorts right now in BTC, fine, but you got to know where are you wrong. You can't play a near-term short and then use a stop on the weekly level. It doesn't make any sense, But if I'm shorting a 30-minute pie cycle, maybe I give it 2 or 3 candles, or I have a specific level and above the topping tail from this morning. Cardano just bounced, went from a lower low to testing the pivot lower highs, trying to get above the bands. This is the area that's defining this intermediate term. Lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. It's pretty good pivot right here. If we can get above here, maybe we, in our model, it says you can see a short covering rally. Maybe move back towards pi. You got the 200 here and then pi. That tends to happen. I could see that. Didn't quite test 6 cents. Look at EOS. Ooh, this is a strong candle. So here, guys, this structure is different. You can see here now we just made a higher high. Cardano doesn't have higher highs yet. This is a higher high relative to all this. Lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. So you just change that pattern for the intermediate term. This is an hourly chart, intermediate term. It's bullish. So this is bullish. I want to be a buyer on this pullback, the next pullback. Hourly cycle, this next 4-hour hourly dip, I'd be a buyer. This is a real money candle. This is the biggest, strongest candle on the chart in most recent history, except for here. This was pretty big candle. It didn't have a lot of follow through. This was a big candle, followed by a bottoming tail. So the bears just couldn't really push it lower. And then this is the strongest bullish candle. So you just try to follow the money by following these real money candles. That's the strongest candle in a while. Bull side. This was decent, but not anywhere in comparison to this and this. So this is your first footprint of real money buying in here. It looks good. Aeon. So still struggling to get above its hourly pivots. Still, it's not quite there. It's got to get above these highs. That's a pretty strong V bottom, though. What else, Alec?
Honestly, I think that kind of wraps it up. You don't have to maybe take a look at like Neo or something, but
yeah, let's look at that. No, look at Monero too. Our EOS looks pretty strong. I might add the EOS here on that real money candle and then buy the next pullback also. Neo just to bounce to, it's above the bands. It failed at 200. It just still has all this. It's not quite through yet. Still has all this to get above. But if you get a move back down in here again, now you're looking for a higher low or a double bottom. Pretty good failure at the 200. So that's an example. If you buy lower lows, which you can, you just have to know that you're going contrarian and it's lower low, then you'd be taking some off in front of the 200 for sure. Just adding and reducing, failed at pi here on Monero on the hourly. So this has a much more bullish structure, intermediate term. This is technically in a new uptrend. Here's your lower highs, and then you kind of put in a small pivot here. You kind of pulled away from it, but clearing this high here for sure was bullish. And so you get above the bands in our model too. You typically get a move back to pi, and that's what we've seen. So that was kind of what we were seeing on the relative value basis, that this was a pretty good move, even versus BTC. So any kind of hourly 4-hour pullback with the cycle, I like Monero. This would be ideal location, a little bit lower. But that looks pretty good. So some markets are trying to turn. Maybe we'll just finish up, Alec, here with the hourly on Ether, just to see the same time frame comparison. So, okay, so here we have pretty good size candle, right? This was pretty good size.
Yep. Yeah.
So there's some buying in here, but even like this is a bullish candle here. But so if you're trying to play a longer term time frame, those are places where you could add, like your bottoming tail well below pi, and you are bullish for the next 6 months, buy that candle. Take another lot, buy this candle. Take another lot, buy this candle. And then like here, now that we're finally getting lower, we got lower highs, and then whoa, now we're back above the bands. This next pullback, you could get more aggressive. So if you had bought this candle, if you bought this candle, if you bought here, you'd have your average would probably be right around there. So on this next pullback, maybe you get heavier. If I'm buying a 1 lot here, a 1 lot here, 1 lot here, now maybe I'm buying 3 lots on this next pullback, or I'm layering in 1 lot, 1 lot, 1 lot. And I know that I have all this buying, this wall, and a pullback about halfway is where I want to start to get heavier, and then my risk is below the low. So anything I get heavier on a pullback, anything I add, if we can't hold that low, then that's where you would stop out. Maybe you just keep your original 3 lots. So if I double my position in here, that low gets taken out. You got to take this off and play defense. This is what we go over every day, or when we get together in our live room. But I don't want to chase here long. You want to be a better buyer on the pullback, more like this area on this time frame. But that's good that we're above the bands. We still got some room maybe to trade up here to pi. So we'll be updating our team on this next pullback for sure, hourly and 4-hour, the stuff that we like on the long side.
Yep. Yeah. And if you're interested in that team, just go to blockedgecapital.com and education. You sign up for free, which is a chat room. So if not, just give us a follow on the Twitter posted in the channel description.
Yeah, guys, right here. Some of you maybe are new to our stuff. Media, blockedgecapital.com, like Alex said. This is our podcast we put on here. We're going to start blogging more, updates, just different articles. Probably put some stuff on other markets like the dollar, what other fiat is doing. And then, under education is kind of where we have our trading course. This is a great course. I mean, it's my entire directional model that, we still work with hedge funds and different big buy side firms. And when I was running the rates desk. That's a great value to learn that. I mean, we have our crypto room here. We're putting more of these alerts real time. This is our more dedicated trading team. We do a lot of coaching and mentoring in this room. And then this chat room is free. Guys, you come into our River room and kind of join the community.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, River's pretty much Slack. So
yeah, pretty much Slack. All right, guys, pretty good update. Pretty good bounce. Hopefully some of you guys are long or had some good moves up. Maybe you get a chance to lighten up, and then let's see what this next pullback brings.
Yeah, and we're doing this every day of the week, 11 a.m. Eastern. So give us a follow so you don't miss it.
All right. Thanks for hopping on, everyone. We'll talk to you.